شانئك هو الأبتر صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would now request Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhary for his welcome remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very warm welcome to you, Professor Mr. Mahidulatit, and also your colleagues from your institute and also from the Italian Embassy in Islamabad. We are glad that you are here and you are having a number of meetings since yesterday, and I believe you will also be traveling to Lahore to Azad Kashmir, so it's quite a bit of orientation for you, and it's good that somebody from Italy, which is a very friendly country for Pakistan. I spent quite some years in United Nations, where on UN Security Council reform, for example, you were our very close partner for all those years, still are. In agriculture, in many other areas, I think your country and my country continue to cooperate. So it's a good thing that you are here. We are also happy that you have chosen a subject on which is so important for us and we believe for the rest of the world. So when I saw the topic that you wanted to speak on, it was natural that you try to Google as to what is Italy's approach to BRI, and I did that. A number of articles cropped up, and then I also saw your website, and Francesca had also written an article. The upshot of all those articles was that since the last 1 year, when your Prime Minister and President Xi signed an MOU for Italy's participation in BRI, there has been a debate. There has been a debate whether this project will benefit Italy or whether there are risks attached to it. And a completely good rationale was made in your article and also in others, that Italy has to look after its own economic interests, and if its economy gets a stimulus because of this, so be it. It has to have that growth. And secondly, Italy's trade with China, which used to be much higher and had come down, there was a possibility by this project participation you could take that up. But then, of course, we could understand that there were concerns from other European partners of Italy, whether China would meet all those standards and procedures that European Union has set or not. And when you look at it, you see that many of those countries themselves are now collaborating with China on many of these deals. The United States, same goes for United States. United States may be in a competition with China at the moment, but United States is engaged in a major way with China in both trade and investment relationships. So it made sense. There was also, I saw some references with regard to the indebtedness. Well, that Italy's debt burden has gone up, so maybe this will further indebt. And this is a well-known mantra here, because we all know that we all hear this mantra, whereas our own experience is that this is more to malign China and to stop it from interacting with countries like Pakistan and others, and less about facts. Facts are chosen very, very selectively to project. For example, in case of Pakistan, which is deeply engaged with CPEC, our debt burden on account of CPEC is less than 10% of Pakistan's total debt profile. So we think that all these dynamics must be playing its part in your case too. We'll be very happy to hear from you firsthand how Italy sees the regional and global dynamics that are now in play. And I think there is an attempt by projects like BRI to bring back globalism which in the age of unilateralism is frankly on the margins, on the sides. And therefore, we'd like to hear about your assessment about the regional and global dynamics in this regard, and how you think that China's BRI project and its CPEC project also, how do you see that shaping up? In my own office, we just brief you on what South Asia is doing, and I think you are also meeting other departments, so you have been quite briefed. So we are trying to convert all these challenges that emanate from our own neighborhood into opportunities. Our best bet, frankly, is our relationship with China, because this relationship has been for the last 70 years a source of strength for us. China for the last 70 years has never armed twisted Pakistan, has never interfered in Pakistan's internal affairs, has never impinged on our sovereignty. So we think that it's a good relationship. But we also have a good relationship with the United States. Frankly, we have had a long, sustained periods of engagement with the United States. So we frankly want good relations with both, even if they are in competition with each other. We often cite to them that we were a bridge for United States to China 40 years ago, when the United States engaged in relationship with the People's Republic of China in 1971. We believe that we are still that bridge, and we'd like to be that bridge. But Europe too is a continent which is, I call it a resilient continent. We cannot rule that out. Europe still is a huge trading partner for Pakistan, investment partner for Pakistan. And so we are happy, and especially when you mentioned in my office that you are also trying to boost relations in some other non-conventional areas, some new areas like fishing and others. So that would be very, very nice. So we look forward to hearing you, your views, and we're very happy once again that you came to Pakistan and to our institute. Thank you so much.
I now invite Professor Andrea Margeletti to please take the floor. Sir.
Salam alaikum. It's always a pleasure coming home. Give me the pleasure to consider this institute and your country a second home for me. I've been in Pakistan several times, and it's a wonderful country. Not for the landscape, not for the rivers, not for the many mosques, for the churches, but because Pakistan is made by wonderful people. So thank you for consider me, and always a friend, and I will continue to be. Before to start, let me introduce two real experts. In some senses, I am their spokesman. The first is Dr. Gabriele Iacovino. Please stand up, Gabriele. Dr. Gabriele Iacovino is the director of the Center for International Studies. He is in the past, it was my right hand. Gabriele is more than right hand. Gabriele is the best part of my brain. And sometimes the wrong side. And secondly, please, Dr. Francesca Manenti. She is the senior analyst in charge of Asian Pacific desk of the Center for International Studies. And not in my opinion, but generally speaking, she's considered one of the best experts in European and Pakistan relation that we have, not in Italy, but in Europe. Many of the things that I will say today are also part of the discussion that Dr. Manenti, Dr. Iacovino, and I we have done in the past months and weeks. And let me tell you also in these hours. The motto of my institute is the obvious is never granted. So it's really, really a pleasure and a privilege to speak with in a such important, well-regarded international institute. This is the official name of my talks. In reality, I try to do something a little bit different, some Italian surprise, and to discuss more about opportunities and risks. We know what is BRI, what is CPEC. I think that you don't need any kind of lectures about something that you are building and never go to an architect that is building a house telling him what to do meanwhile he's doing. Never do. So I wanted to provide, we are a strategic studies institute, a strategic approach, starting from the wide side and going to the details. Okay, starts with US. Because the US, we could, I say, like or dislike, but the reality that, right or wrong, this is the only Americans that we have, and we have to deal with. US is still leading the world, and they will continue to lead the world for many years, because the economy is running faster. The military side is so powerful, and the interest they had that they have built all over the Europe, but all over the world, maintains the credibility of an American power. The American changed the idea during the last 25 years. We had at the end of the Cold War. You were part, fighting against the Soviets in the Afghanistan, in the Soviet-Afghanistan war. And now the more interest of US is toward the Asia-Pacific area. But it's not enough. Something changed. It changed after the operation Iraqi Freedom, when the American and also many an international coalition destroyed the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein and established a democratic elected government in Iraq. But it wasn't a smooth transition. It was a bloody war, with thousands and thousands of American soldiers killed. And not only, let me tell you, not only American soldiers, but international soldiers as well also. My country paid a terrible tribute. And I don't want to underline, but it's obvious. The worst terrible tribute was paid by the Iraqi soldiers. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we underline too much our casualties and not to discuss about the casualties of an owner of a house. The experience of 2003, 2007, in some senses, shaped the new American strategical field. We, say brackets, we don't want to participate anymore in a nation building situation, because a nation building situation is too long to establish. Nation building situation has too many MSA, is very uncertain, and most of all, I need to put at risk the lives of many soldiers. With the capability, with the conventional capabilities that American military has, that is still many years ahead of any capabilities that the Russian or the Chinese could, say, employ. They are able now to pinpoint enemies and to destroy enemies without to put a huge numbers of soldiers on the ground. That means that the influence of the US in Northern Africa and Middle East is more connected about their security instead of security of the country that they support. In reality, since the 9/11 2001, every US President arrived in the White House and in the Oval Office and called the chief of the military, called the chief of intelligence, says, never again. No other administration could afford a second 9/11. So the focus of US is to reduce risk towards US without having a deep involvement in the dialogue in some countries or in some areas of the world. Secondly, you all remember the Yom Kippur War of 1973 between Israel and Syria and Egypt, mainly also some Jordans, but the struggle was mainly between Egypt and Syria and obviously Israel. At the end of this war, the OPEC cartel decided to, in some senses, punish the West that had supported Israel, raising the price of the oil. And this situation affected the economy of the West, US and Europe as well. What happened? That in US, and remember that when we discuss about international actors, we discuss, generally speaking, about 4 actors: US, Russia, China, and Europe. And it's a mistake. Because US, China, Russia are states, Europe is a continent. So we don't have a European government in the sense of a national government. So since 1973, the Americans said that we can't afford anymore to be under, and I say, the threat of a pistol to the temple of someone else that using the tool of energy, at the time it was the tool of the oil. Now we discuss about energy, but it's something more, to change our politics. And they started a policy in 1973 to reduce the influence of external flow of oil or energy towards US. And nowadays, US is mainly independent. So if it's mainly independent, and in the next years, US will start to export energy, they don't need to be involved anymore in Middle East. They don't need to be involved anymore, such in the past, in Central Asia. But this vacuum must be filled by someone else. It's a matter of fact. We said in Italy that if you have, in policy, that if you have a vacuum, someone has to fill this gap. Now we have 2 other realities. One is Russia, one is China. Russia is very military powerful, but is very poor. That's the point. Because when US to reduce the capability of the production of Russia and to reduce the price oil per barrel, asked to the Saudis to go in overproduction, now we have the price of the oil per barrel less than in the past, and obviously the flow of money, cash, for the Russian is reduced. That means that Russia has a clear strategy, very clear, but has not like in the past, the capability to implement the strategy. So it remains a military superpower, but in terms of the power projection, is still a regional superpower. Then we have China. China is an opportunity, but bless you. And in the meantime, it could be a threat. Depends on how you see. It's a coin. 2 faces. Obviously, my friend, you're right. You're completely right when you said China never had the interference in my country, never sent a soldier in my country, never tried to change the things in my country. You're right, it's your country, you know much better than me. But I think that you have to agree with me that the things that happens, not everything that happens are visible. as the differences between the Western countries and the other countries. We have watches, you have time. And especially like in Russia and in China, if you don't have the urgency of a democracy, because we have a problem every few years, in Italy every few months, we have a general election, sometimes less, but we try to reach some years at least, or new governments. If you have election every 4 years, or every 5 years, you had your, I may say, political vision is 4 years long, 5 years long. And it's difficult to have something more, or in some countries, if you change government every 2 years. So the political vision of Europe, of the Westerner, generally speaking, is 8 years. That means 2 American administration. The first and the second mandate, if you have a second mandate, or in the case of George Bush father or Jimmy Carter, one. In this case, China and Russia as well, but more China, has no need to go to general election because their system is different. I don't want to judge. We may say their system is different. And if you don't need to have a general election, that means that you can plan better than ever. Because you could, let's say, apply resources, having, bless you, having a very, very, very long-term strategy. This time, this year I will do this, next year I will do this, because you know that in 5 years you're still in charge of your country. In 5 years, 10 years, and so on. So speaks about Better Road Initiative. Okay. And I wanted to speak not about a big strategy, but I wanted to speak about the major of a town. Think in terms about the major of a town. Better Road Initiative seems an incredible, well-planned infrastructural program to change the face of Central Asia with roads that going towards the east, the ports for the seaside, sea land plains that they have, and to do everything for free for the idea of better relation all over the Asia. Yes, it's correct. It's true. It's true. But if I am a major of a town or a city, and someone rebuilt the infrastructure of my city, he did it for free. And my city became very modern. All the city, everything works. The general, I may say, electricity, the public buses, the underground, the tube, everything is going very well. My citizens, without any doubt, are very happy. But which person my citizen will identify as the person that changed the world for the best? An invisible donor, or they will thank me? They will thank me as a mayor. And I will be re-elected. As a matter of fact, it's the basic of a public consensus. If I do something very well, people said, I want you again and again. So think about in terms of Better Road Initiative. China will rebuild the infrastructure of many countries for the goods of this country, but in the meantime also for having a different approach. If the governors of these countries will have for free, officially free, all the infrastructure of this country rebuilt, the citizens of this country will revolt again the governor. It's a matter of fact. But at that time, the governor, the prime minister, the president, choose you the name, will be under, I may say, the patronage of the Chinese government. Because will be the Chinese that could open or close the door. Things about maintenance, for instance. So what I'm telling you is that obviously we are working for the future. The past is very safe, but it's just past. So we need to catch the opportunity that the Chinese government is giving us, but never to forget our national interest. That would be not necessarily the national interest of the Chinese government. Because at the very end, the problem is sovereignty. And if you have a limited sovereignty, it's obvious that you have a political approach about the foreign relation. Especially when you wanted to use new infrastructure to rebuild your country and to modernize your country. Another thing that changed in the last 10 years, 15 years, is the concept of dimension. Until a few years ago, from the Napoleon age, we were accustomed to think about countries in terms of dimension. Is a big country is important. As a huge number of the population is an important country. The weight. If bigger is the country, bigger is the importance of this country. Not anymore. Why? Because only one word changed everything. Connectivity. Until a few years ago, we had no idea about the terms of connectivity. We spoke in terms of communication. Communication between people, between governments, between points from one side of one part of a country to another part of a country. Now everything is changed through the concept of a connectivity. It's the difference between to be alive and not to be alive. If you have a connection, you exist. If you don't have a connection, you count zero. I give you an example, a real example. We have huge countries with hundreds millions of citizens, and so with all the concept were important countries, dimension still counts, that are less important, much less important than, for example, Singapore. That is, as you know, a town, just a city, but in which the level of the connectivity with the rest of the world is amazing. And the economy of Singapore and the level of influence that Singapore could, I may say, explore in the area is absolutely 500% more of the level of a single town. Could you imagine a single city in the world that has the same, a single city, not a single country, a single city in the world that has the same political weight at regional level than Singapore? No other city in the world. Why they have? Because they have a connection. And connection means also something more. That is for us, my friend, that you have still black hair, I am white hair, is a problem. Until I envy you very much. Until a few years ago, the decision makers have a tool that for them was, I may say, the most important tool in the world. Time. Until a few years ago, we had time to decide. We had the time to turn right or time to turn left. And if we turn left, we had the time to say we are wrong, coming back and turn right. Time is something that we don't have anymore. Who has time is a person that is not connected. Who has time is a government that has no connection. Because nowadays everything is absolutely fast. And when we discuss about the digitalization of governments, we are discussing not about to provide every policymakers a smartphone to go to on Instagram, but we are discussing about the fact that with the digitalization of the government, you have a digitalization of the will and the digitalization of the decisions. That means that nowadays you have to take hard decision with a window of opportunity that is absolutely much narrower than before, and with no possibility to come back and say, I'm wrong, I change mine. Unless you don't change your approach and do consider that the world that we have seen till now doesn't exist anymore, and if you continue to think in terms of relation that we had in the past, you will be forgotten in the political arena. Is something that for some countries could be very, very difficult to discuss and also to accept. Let me speak about the approach that the EU and in particular Italy has about this problem. I personally think that the memorandum that the past government wrote with China was a mistake. Not because we wrote a memorandum of understanding with China, that's good, China is a friendly country, we want to participate in a new world in which China could play a bigger role. But it was a mistake because we signed a memorandum without a strategy. That's the key. The problem was that the government at the time said we have to do something different from the government of the past. So this time we changed from US to China, but is something that was made not for foreign approach, but for internal affairs. We don't have the same government anymore, and the approach that now we have, I think, is more holistic. So to use the opportunity that China is giving in Europe without to consider China only a commercial partner. The interest that China has with a Better Road Initiative is not a commercial, is a politics. It's a strategic politics. We had in the 20th century, the century of the US, as a matter of fact, China was to reshape this century, the century of China. And to do this needs to not to go and to go against US, but to create an alternative to US. That is something that the US are not in any case ready to accept. So when they decided to reach with the Infrastructure Europe, when they decided to create a cyber Belt and Road Initiative, when they decided to have a sea side strategy for the Belt and Road Initiative, when they are having Gadar, when they have a port in Djibouti, is a part not of only a commercial intention, but is a political will. And is something that we need to to discuss. Are we ready to accept a world that is not shaped anymore by US or by someone, or to accept and to join a world that is shaped by someone else? I don't want to. It's not a. It's very a sensitive problem because it's a problem of a future in which kind of world we want to live with. In this case, I think that the example of your country could be very interesting because you maintain a very good balance between the two forces, trying in many cases with success to catch opportunity from one side and to another side, playing the game. I think that a good move for Europe would be, that I repeat, is a group of countries and is not Europe, United States or Europe, could be try to balance the opportunity that the Chinese are giving us, and meantime try to raise the attention with US about the fact that we need as a European a more involvement of US in European affairs. Because, for example, by the security side, we still need US as a strong partner of Europe. In this sense, my country could lead a very interesting, I don't want to say important, but an interesting role. First of all, because we are a Mediterranean country, deep in the Mediterranean Sea. That means that having the vast majority of our import that arrive by the sea give us the capability to catch before others the opportunities of a new trade system, international system. First point. Second point, cash. We need to use the cash that comes from abroad to improve our infrastructure system and in meantime be more competitive on the market. Because the real idea is, if we will have the miracle to have a wise politician in Europe and also in my country, to create a system in which also Europe could balance the power of the US and the power of China, and to provide security and opportunities. In this arena, I think that my country could do a lot. First of all, because in some senses we in the past we were so fragile to be so stable, and so we know how to reach unstable system and to provide insights. And the second, because we have a long-term history about cooperation. We are a people of country of sailors, and so for us it's absolutely normal to open our mind and to accept other ideas. When we had the terrorist attacks in Europe, we never say in my institute Islamic terrorism. Islam has nothing to do with the terrorism. The terrorist attacks means it. Many countries in Europe raise the idea to punish the terrorism, raising the problem of revenues of the immigrants in Europe. And my country, I have to say, it stands to remain firm on the base that the immigrants that are living in Italy are people that give a huge contribution to the stability and economy of our country. So to accept, to integrate, maintaining a tradition. So at the end of my intervention, many things are in front of us. Many good things in front of us. But we have many threats in front of us. First of all, we have to decide without having the possibility to come back. Speed, we said before. Secondly, the choice that we will do today will affect the next generation. And the populist system that is in many countries, not only in US, if you compare the propaganda of the Indian leadership is similar of the populist propaganda in many Western countries. Try to raise the attention to create an enemy, to deresponsabilize the efforts of a government. So, no time to choose. Try to raise long-term choices with governments that have a very short-term vision. And at the very end, to continue to provide human rights and dignity to the people. Because if you want to solve the problem, you solve the problem before the problem arises. You solve the problem because you have a long-term strategy. You did a lot. I think that your country could continue to teach us more than a lot. Thank you.
Sorry.